A recipe for what they call a homemade sweet, and it's from the Officious cookbook from ancient Rome. It starts out with a date. It is a pitted date. It's then stuffed with ground almonds that you have added black pepper to. Once you've got that together, simply drizzle a bit of honey. And top it off with a pinch of salt. And there it is, Dulcia Domestica. Just pick it up with your hands and eat it.
Not bad at all.
We have not yet had a customer not like this. These have been very popular today.
Well, welcome to the city of Accra. It's 1187, the time of the Third Crusade, and we're here in the cosmopolitan city in the very northwestern corner on the seacoast of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, engaged in the defense of an aggressive siege by a siege of Saladin, the Muslim commander. Our city is a great cosmopolitan city. Here reside Latin Christians, who are in charge currently, Orthodox Christians, Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, and Jews. And we're trying hard to preserve our way of life. Around you, you will see samples of some of the things that we live and work on a daily basis with. Weapons, medicine, and the foods we enjoy. We'll begin with a view of a knight arming himself for combat to preserve our way of life here in Accra.
My name is Robert Coleman, and we are members of the Noble Company and Order of St. Maurice. We study the Crusade period from AD 1095 through AD 1291. We study all aspects of Crusader camp life, culture, and of all the cultures from Crusaders, Byzantine Empire, the Islamic states, and the Mongols.
I'm Reenactor John. I am a brother knight of the Order of St. John, commonly referred to as the Hospitallers. I will now be armoring up with the assistance of Sergeant Pierre and Robert Coleman.
Hello, I am Sergeant Pierre de la Mons. I will be armoring good Sir Reenactor John and helping him by grabbing weapons for him to use in battle.
At this point, Renaud, with the assistance of Pierre, is donning his mail hauberk. Mail is made by winding wire rings around a mandrel core and linking each individual ring into a fabric. Each of these rings are closed shut by a rivet. A hauberk has up to 60 to 75,000 rings in it and can weigh anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds. Beneath his mailed hauberk, he wears a padded acquaint. In essence, it is a coat made of cotton and stuffed with cotton tow. Over his head, he puts a padded cover to protect his hair from the rings of the mail. He is now donning what is called a mail coif. This is a hood made of the same material as the hauberk. It's designed to protect the head from slashing blows. He will next don his helmet. During the Crusades, one of the greatest dangers to a Crusader knight was Islamic archery. The faceplate on Renaud's helmet is a deterrent to archery, keeping him safe from Saracen flight arrows and the deadlier arrows that would penetrate the eye slot. We next gird our knight with a sword. This is a single-handed sword of what is called Type 10. Double-edged with a long fuller down the middle. It's designed to strengthen the sword as well as lighten the blade. It has a wood handle covered with leather, straight handguard, and a brazelnut-shaped pommel. This sword is girded by a knot rather than a buckle. It is the simplest form of sword belt known. The sword is carried in a wooden cord leather scabbard that has a protective metal tip called a chape. The last item that Renaud will don is his habit. While other knights would wear what is called a surcoat, a sleeveless garment, knights of the hospital wear a monastic robe over their armor. This is a hooded robe with long, wide sleeves. Later on during their history, the Order of the Hospital changed from this robe to a surcoat because the robe, being loosely formed, would make it more difficult for a knight to defend himself and easier for his enemies to cause him injury. However, generally, when this robe was worn, the robe was worn tucked up around the sword belt to allow for more mobility around the legs, as demonstrated here.
Left shoulder.
Thus you see how a Hospitaller knight is armed. Squire Pierre.
Thank you, monsieur. All right, we have a fully armed and armored hospitaller brother knight now. Now he would go fetch his kite shield, which he would use to brace up against arrows and impact while on horseback or on foot. It has a security strap that he would hang over his shoulder and head to keep the sword or the shield balanced on his person. His primary weapon as a mounted warrior would be a spear or lance as such. He would use it to strike his opponents at distance while charging down the field. He would couch it in a position such as that so that he could brace it properly while landing hits with it. His secondary weapon, and one of his most important, is the longsword, a weapon used mostly while on horseback for slashing down his opponents from a distance. Also quite deadly on foot, but a preferable horseback weapon.
He would further be armed with a weapon of last resort, the dagger. In short, it is a shorter version of the sword, normally used, again, as a weapon of last resort or as a mercy weapon, called a misericorde. When a foe was defeated, the dagger was placed at the eye slot, and the knight would ask if his opponent would yield. It is normally advisable to yield, for the alternative is too horrible to think of.
Well, these are some of the items that we may have had, the men may have had when they were on pilgrimage, when they were at the siege of Acre. Just some items here. They would have all been dried items because as they were traveling, fresh fruits and vegetables and items that were fresh would be hard to come by. On this side back here we have some flatbread, some olives, Olives could be dried or even salted so that you could carry them with you. Being that we were in the Middle East or in the Mediterranean area, olives were quite common. Any meats we would have had at the time would have been dried meat, such as a sausage that would be made out of just about anything we could find to grind up and take with us. In front we have dried garbanzo beans here. And this would be barley. Barley was common in the time. We didn't have corn until we got to the U.S., so barley was a very common grain that also resisted a lot of bugs. So you could carry it long distances and you wouldn't have as many weevils and stuff getting into it. Over here we have some lentils, another common grain item that was available at the time, so we could eat those and carry those along with us. We would make porridges and soups of many kinds out of that. Here we have another variety. We would have had of peas that would be available, dried peas. There's also some barley in there and some other beans, as you can see. The spices we might have with us would be rosemary, and we would grind it up ourselves. We'd dry it and grind it up ourselves. We would have brought those on the travels with us. Also thyme and salt. Being near the Mediterranean, salt would be available. You'd take water, you'd dry it in the sun, and you would have your salt there that you could take with you. So there wasn't much flavoring that was used at the time. As you can see, there's no sugar, no honey. There was everything was pretty bland and was pretty much a porridge, a stew, or something that you could boil. That was how it came to be. Olive oil was what we used for just about everything, not only from cooking with, but also from taking care of the chainmail of the gentleman, and also women used it to tend their hair, to keep their hair clean and so forth. So wine and beer were the two drinks we would have had at the time. Wine, mainly because it was available and it could be transported. It didn't go bad, and the water wasn't very good to drink at the time. Beer wasn't as alcoholic as it is nowadays, and so everyone from a youngest child to an oldest adult would be drinking beer. So we drank out of horn cups, as you can see here, and also any ceramic cups that we could carry along with us. So also because as a woman from France, I would bring some of my herbs with me on pilgrimage because, as you know, when men travel for long periods of time, oftentimes they become a little odorous. So using my lavender, I would be able to occasionally take a sniff of it and relieve myself from some of the odors that might be in the area. Also, I could sprinkle it on the ground, and as you walk on it, it would release the essential oils and make the area smell better. In front, you'll see here we have a Latin Bible. If you did not know Latin, you would not know the scriptures unless somebody had taught them to you. You would do them by memory if you could. But as a woman who was on pilgrimage, I would have my Bible with me. And as a well-educated woman in the ways of the Bible, I would know how to read that Latin, and oftentimes would pray as such in that sort of way. So that's kind of a setup of what might have come along with me on these travels, and thanks for listening.
This is how we would cook in the field. You have this tripod based on a 12th century example, and you have a pot that would either be made of iron or copper. Food was either boiled or grilled or broiled. In this case, you would put meat in a pot and boil it. You would make stews and other things. You would generally have utensils made of wood or metal. In order to change the heating levels, you would utilize a trammel hook. The trammel hook would either raise or lower the pot on your fire. Thusly, this trammel hook is based on an example from the Morgan Bible that's held in the J.P. Morgan Library in New York City. You would pull your food out of your pot utilizing this wicked instrument called a meat hook. You would hook the meat from the side, pull it out of the pot, and serve it on the tray, thusly. Metal skillets and griddles didn't change much between the Middle Ages and today.
These are my siege weapons. There are many like them, but these are mine. This is a Roman invention called the ballista. Basically, it's a very, 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 very large crossbow. It can be sighted. If you use this as your sight and that as your barrel, and you can aim very well and knock down the walls. This little one is called an onager. Basically, an onager is a wild ass. Or for those who are sensitive to the word ass, it's a wild donkey.
So called because he kicks backwards like a donkey when it's fired.
For example, if this were a man standing beside it, and I set this off, I knocked his head off. But it does throw a rock a good ways, so it was a very useful thing in war. But this is our pride and joy. The classical catapult, known as the trebuchet. And I've got it. Goes. Now, you're going to want to watch how far this throws the marshmallow. We only use marshmallows for that, because if we used the wooden balls they send out, we'd probably kill somebody. This was how we took down a wall. This is how we threw diseased animal parts and burning pots of fire into the castles.
I'm a brother of the Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, or the Hospitaller Order. We take our name from one of the important functions we served here in the Middle East, which was to operate hospitals. And we have two of our major installations in the city of Jerusalem, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and here in the city of Accra. Our hospital serves as a center of medical learning and a place where medical knowledge is exchanged from east to west in a way which takes place nowhere else in the world. Come a little closer and I'll show some of the medications we used during the Crusades. It's important to remember that as the standing military force of the Holy Land, we have the main job of fighting the forces of the enemy. But we also perform the function of escorting groups of pilgrims from holy site to holy site. And as such, as a member of the Hospitaller Order, I had to be prepared to take care of all sorts of medical emergencies, from indigestion to battlefield injuries. Let's look at some of the medications we have. The first is poison hemlock. One doesn't think of it as a medication, but in fact, in a mild, gentle dosage, prepared in a tea, it is a very effective remedy for dealing with muscle cramps, a common problem of the fighting man in the hot climate of the Mideast, where it becomes cold at night as well. For the pilgrim of a certain age, having trouble with digesting the Syrian peppered goat, a dramatic change to his diet, we have dried juniper seeds, which when brewed in a gentle tea is an effective and immediate remedy for dealing with heartburn. A remedy which could never be used back in Europe, but here has been resurrected as a form of tribute to the ancient pagan forms of medicine, is the use of mistletoe. Mistletoe being a plant strongly associated with ancient pagan and druid beliefs, here in the Holy Land we use it as an effective remedy for the common skin infections which both knights and pilgrims face from wearing dirty clothing day after day. One of the great medical miracles learned by Europeans from the Muslims, who in turn learned it from the Indians, was the use of the opium poppy. And we use it in some strange ways. For example, if a pilgrim is having a hard time sleeping at night, maybe it's an exciting trip for him, a bit of the leaf, a bit of the stem, a bit of the petal, and one drop from the bulb in warm water provides a remedy for sleeplessness. More dramatically, on the battlefield, the sap of the opium poppy mixed with olive oil and beef fat produces an unguent which can be placed directly into a battlefield wound, providing a remedy which slowly dissipates the pain of a battlefield injury and lasts a long time without giving a dangerous dose of opium to the recipient of the medication. And finally, the simplest medicine of all, one taught to us by the Greeks and practiced here regularly in the Holy Land in its use is honey. Honey, of course, is a delicious addition to foods. But beyond that, honey can be poured directly onto a gaping battlefield wound. The sticky honey will stop the bleeding, also acts to prevent the formation of skin infections, and when a wound dressing is removed from a honey-treated wound, it doesn't pull the scab with it. Just a handful of some of the medical miracles we've discovered here in the Holy Land, which we will export back to Europe at the end of the Crusades. Thank you.
How about you?
My name is Ken Bauman. I live in Milan, Michigan, which is in the extreme southeastern corner of the state. And I've brought a model 1890 breech-loading U.S. mortar that was basically used during the Spanish-American War. It replaced the Civil War coehorn mortar, which was technology that went back about 200 years. The 5 of these mortars were used at San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt and the Gatling guns, and several others were used during the American War in the Philippines with the Moro rebels. It also included accoutrements that are used by the crew that serves this mortar, and some graphics about information about it. The caliber is 3.6 inches. The maximum range is 200 is just under 2 miles, and the tube and on the carriage or the base weighs 545 pounds. The projectiles weigh about 20 pounds apiece. The idea of the mortar was to be a high-angle fire that could rain projectiles down if you were behind entrenchments and stuff. It's strictly an anti-personnel thing, and the shells were made to explode in the air and rain pieces of shell and shrapnel down upon ground troops.
I'm Cordelia.
Cora.
Dean.
Julian.
All right, so is this your first time here at this festival?
No.
What brings you to this festival every year?
Well, we are reenactors ourselves, and we like to come to this and just learn more about it, I guess.
How many festivals have you been to in the past?
I think this is the 3rd time that we've been here.
Could you tell me some of your favorite things about this festival? Maybe some of your favorite exhibits that you've seen so far this year, or if you've attended any lectures or...
Haven't had a chance for lectures yet. But the displays are wonderful to meet and find out about different units that you might be interested in. But I enjoy sitting in on some of the seminars, and I think we're actually going to try the dance lessons at noon.
Those are fun. I have done those myself. What time period or time periods do you all participate in?
We do 14th century reenacting, American Revolution, and then my father and I do World War II for the Germans.
Interested in joining the resistance, perhaps?
Well, we would be your enemies.
I have sent to the beyond many Germans out onto the field. I'm quite ferocious out there. All right, Samantha has been getting lots of comments today that she looks like Lady Edith from the hit TV show on Masterpiece Theater, Downton Abbey.
So I'm not quite as devious as Lady Edith, but I look like her, apparently.
I'm here with 2 of the most well-behaved horses. You know what? Come to think of it, I don't think they're real horses. Oh, no. Well, this is a nice setup, the 353rd Cavalry Reconnaissance Unit. This is their exhibit. We will be interviewing some of the members tomorrow. This shows a display of the horses and the equipment that the horses would carry and pull.